Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Liz, Chair of the Washington State Public Disclosure Commission, joined by Vice Chair Alan Hayward. Today, he and I will be the presiding officers for today's hearings. It's 1 o'clock on Thursday, May 2nd. This hearing is being conducted under the authority of RCW 34.05. The Administrative Procedure Act, WAC 390-28, and RCW 4217A, the Campaign Disclosure and Contribution Act. We're doing this meeting today by Microsoft Teams. There are a number of matters on the brief enforcement hearing docket. Commissioner Hayward and I have both received the written record for each case. Each respondent has had an opportunity or will appear by Teams, or could have submitted their statement in writing and waived their right to appear at today's meeting. There is one change to the agenda. We'll be starting with the Michael Cannon matter, which Commissioner Hayward will hear because I'm recusing myself on that. And we'll be moving public comment period to the end of the agenda. So at this time, I'd like to ask staff, which I understand to be Alice, Jennifer, and Kurt, who are with us today, to be sworn in so that they can present the various cases that they will be handling this afternoon. Do each of you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll be giving in today's proceedings will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
I don't show that Jennifer has her mic off. Jennifer, are you there?
I just enabled her stuff, so.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. For whatever reason, I didn't have the option to unmute myself. Yes, I swear to tell the truth.
All right.
Could I ask, Colin may be participating in one of mine as he helped me with the investigation, so you may want to swear him in also.
All right, Colin. Same question to you. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the information or testimony you'll be giving today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, so we've got staff all sworn in. Who's going to be presenting the staff overview this afternoon? All right, Kurt, your turn.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Presiding Officer Hayward, for this matter. This is PDC case 149617 involving Michael Cannon. I believe Mr. Cannon's on line. On March 16th, 2023, Michael Cannon filed a candidate registration with the PDC, declaring his candidacy for the Office of School Director, Position 4 in the Meade School District, selecting the full reporting option and listing himself as treasurer. Mr. Cannon was seeking re-election to that position as a school director after being elected to office in 2019, and he previously ran for the Spokane City Council District 3, Position 2 in 2013. Staff is alleging that Mr. Cannon violated 4217A 235 of the RCW by failing to timely file the 7-day pre-general election C4 report as required for a 2023 candidate appearing on the November 7th, 2023 general election ballot. For the 2023 election cycle, that 7-day pre-general C4 report was due on October 31st and covering the period October 17 through October 30. The 2023 People for Michael Cannon campaign, herein referred to as the campaign, filed the initial 7-day pre-general election C4 10 days late on November 9th and 2 days after the November 7th general election had been held. The initial C4 disclosed $300 in contributions received and 0 expenditures made. On November 21st, 2023, the campaign filed an amended 7-day pre-general 7-day pre-general election C4 report, disclosing the same $300 in monetary contributions, but the report included $9,242 in previously unreported campaign expenditures. Those expenditures included political advertisements sponsored by the campaign totaling $6,084 for 2 mailers, $2,948 for 2 text robocalls, and $211 to print palm cards. Staff would note that Mr. Cannon, as his zone treasurer, timely filed the 21-day pre-general election C4 report and the post-general election C4 report, and actually filed both of those reports early. The 21-day report was filed 1 day early, and the post-general election was filed November 21st. The campaign disclosed $27,958 in total contributions and $21,617 in total expenditures made. Mr. Cannon has no prior violations of RCW 4217A or WAC 390. On March 6th, I sent Mr. Cannon an email informing him about that his campaign disclosed campaign expenditures late, and after the 2023 general election, that the late reported expenditures rose to the level that staff would be sending him a statement of understanding to complete and return back to the PDC. In that email, I noted that the SOU would acknowledge a violation of 4217A235 and agree to pay a $150 civil penalty as an alternative resolution to scheduling a BAP or a brief adjudicated proceeding. The next day, I sent a follow-up email to Mr. Cannon attaching a PDF of the proposed SOU, requesting that it be completed and mailed back to the PDC along with the $150 penalty payment no later than March 25th. On March 22nd, Mr. Cannon responded to staff's email concerning the proposed SOU, saying that he considered signing and completing it, but he decided to provide testimony to the presiding officer at a BAP hearing. On March 27th, I sent a follow-up email to Mr. Cannon stating that staff would be scheduling a BAP hearing around the 1st of May and that he would be sent a BAP hearing notice in the future, which I did send to him on April 18th. Staff is recommending you find Mr. Cannon violated 4217A235 on one occasion by failing to timely file the 7-day pre-general election C4 report, assess a $150 civil penalty to resolve this matter in accordance with WAC 390-37-143, the BAP penalty schedule for a respondent with no prior violations. The BAP penalty schedule includes any mitigating or aggregating factors presented during this hearing concerning the possible suspension of any portion of the penalty. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I believe Mr. Cannon is available for comment as well. Thank you.
My first question for you would be, was the re-election effort successful?
That's correct. He was successfully re-elected to school board member.
Okay, thank you. So if you're ready, we'll move to swearing in Mr. Cannon and hear his testimony. Well, Mr. Cannon, I'm Alan Hayward, the vice chair, and please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the summary. Thanks for giving me a chance to just comment a bit. My goal here is just to try to be a little helpful. I hope that I will say something that's useful and maybe just not a common excuse. I'm not here to excuse deadlines as much as I'm here to perhaps point out a gap in the process between the PDC system and process and procedure for reporting and maybe other practices that go along with the campaign. So I'll try to keep this brief. So from a campaign perspective, in the last week or two of a campaign, things get pretty wild, especially in these smaller campaigns like school boards where it's a one-man show. We do, we don't have staffs or things like that. It's very intense. So the methodical pace of working a campaign can take a backseat to an opportunistic decision process that may present itself in a very spontaneous, last-minute sort of way. When an unforeseen opportunity arises to take advantage of special pricing or open media schedules or unforeseen donations, decisions to act are made very quickly, oftentimes same day or within that week. most often without invoices or billing processes taking place. So if the window of reporting is 1 week, that likely is not enough time to have adequate detail to report to the PDC, even though there may have been enough loose information to, what I would say, pull the trigger on some media action or some campaign action. So we're making decisions kind of on the fly. And so the long and short of it is I simply did not have the level of detail to be able to report to the PDC in the timeline. So my request is that we maybe consider the circumstances around how and when that reporting information is available. I'm curious if there's any knowledge or reporting on how many of those final 2 or 3 reports end up being amended later. I would venture to guess it would be a pretty high number, just because knowing what I know about how campaigns work, in those final days of the campaign, exact data is not available. It's reconciled later on when invoices come out or when exact billing occurs. And so I would speculate that there's a fair amount of guesswork that happens in those reporting periods. I myself, when faced with the deadline, didn't feel right about just inventing a number or even an estimate or fabricating a number that I thought it would be based on the type of media. So in this case, we're talking about mailers and text. They weren't robocalls, but we might classify text as robocalls in this circumstance. So text and media, I know that we're generally sending those to an audience of, say, 12,000 or whatever the number is. On a per unit basis, I might know what the cost is, but until that action has actually happened and the vendor submits the invoice to me, I don't know what the exact total is to report to the PDC. So I'm faced with either inventing a number or missing a deadline, neither of which are ideal decisions, right? And so again, I'm not justifying missing the deadline. I'm merely trying to shed some light on this is the practical aspect of reporting. And so I don't know if you've heard that before, if it's a common excuse, if it's, perhaps we could talk about maybe if there's a roadmap to improving the process a little bit or things that we could do. One suggestion I would make is that maybe we allow for some not abbreviated, but lower level, that's still the wrong term, different types of reporting during that time period. Maybe we indicate, because the idea is to disclose what campaigns are doing so that the other campaign knows, but also so the public knows. I mean, that's the whole idea behind public disclosure, right? So if there's a way, rather than having to report exact invoice numbers or expenditures, that there's a way to report an action and an audience size. For example, I'm going to send out 1 or 2 mailers to this broad of an audience. The price per unit is this much, to be followed up with an amended report or a later report that indicates what the total actually was. So there's a lot we could talk about there in terms of ideas and maybe solutions, but I guess the long and short of it is that there's a perceived gap between just invoicing practices and the requirements of the PDC reporting. And I think that's a problem for more campaigns probably than have mentioned it. I think people are just sort of flubbing their way through the process, to be totally honest with you. I'll stop there.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cannon. I'm going to refer to staff, Kurt Young, if he has any answer to what percentage of these things get amended after they're filed.
Yeah, that's a good question and a good point that Mr. Cannon brought up. I don't have any actual numbers. I know reports do get amended on the 21/7-day report, usually around the time shortly after the election. What we've advised people in the past, Mr. Cannon, is rather than reporting expenditures, is on the due date, there's an order placed debts and obligations field that you can put in an order placed, and you can put an estimate of what it might be or what the services could be, which are subject to change. So when the report was due, for example, for the mailer, you could have listed the mail house and say district-wide mailing for the Meade School District, amount to be determined or something like that on the report. and then it would have been disclosed. And then as soon as you get the invoice and the details, you would amend that report in the coming days. So obviously that can alleviate the time constraints on a candidate, with, other things around the election. But that's sometimes the problem with being your own treasurer and juggling so many balls as a candidate in the air. So the short answer would be do the, report timely, report an estimated order placed or debt, and then go forward. But it is a fair point that a fair number of reports do get amended for both the 21 and 7 days after they've been initially filed.
Yeah, Mr. Cannon, I believe that you're being very honest and sincere. The fact is that this was a substantial amount of money at a very critical point in the campaign. This is, for a school district race, this is a lot. And not filing it left the voters in the dark. One of our obligations is to try to have not only accurate information, but as accurate as possible in a timely manner where it does some good for the voters. I'm going to rule that you indeed did make a violation, as you've acknowledged. I'm going to accept the staff recommendation of a $150 penalty, but I also understand that you're sincere in your statements. I think you're wrong. I think you do need to file as much as you possibly can to give as much information as possible, even if it later requires an amendment. In recognition that I believe you're sincere and honest, I'm going to suspend $25, but require the payment of $125 for the violation because it was substantial. It was a significant amount of money for that kind of a race very late.
Yeah, sorry, can I address that point too? I meant to mention earlier, and thank you for reminding me, but that was part of the synopsis kind of the case. And I would just say about especially smaller races like school boards, even city council races, that it's not unusual spending practices. So you're correct in that it is a lot of money. It is a big portion of the total raised, but that's sort of how the spending graph would look, that in especially in this small of a race, that you raise and raise and raise and raise and try to save as much money as you can, and then figure out what the best way to spend it is. And if you have a plan, then you work that plan. But when last minute donations or there's last minute opportunities, it's always going to be, I guess the spending graph is always going to look the same for these kinds of races, where there's always going to be, better than a 50% expense rate, ideally better than 50%. In my case, it was a little bit lower, but during those last couple of weeks where you're ironing out like what's the best bang for the buck for this money. So it's a weird time in the campaign, and I thank you for acknowledging that I am trying to be sincere and helpful and not I guess personally, if I just am totally transparent, my goal, I'm happy to pay the infraction. I wondered if there was a suspense of the violation itself, so it's not on the record, but certainly that's your ruling.
I can't do that. The violation is clear. And also, I think you'd be surprised perhaps to see that in almost all the campaigns that there's this, if they are in fact contested races and heated, that it's near the end that a lot of money and a lot of expenditure shows up. Some of the very most important reports involve the one that you didn't report. And so that's leaning somewhat in my decision that it'll be 150 as recommended by staff, with $25 of that suspended. I appreciate your time and thank you very much.
Thank you.
And one last thing, Mr. Cannon, we'll get that order out. We have 30 days to do that. And once you get that order, then that penalty will be due at that time. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. The next matter this afternoon is Central Valley School District. Sorry,
I
the
believe
Central Valley Citizens for Education, I should say. Sorry. Do we have someone here?
I'm
On
going
your
to be doing
behalf?
that one. And
Okay.
that's what I was just wondering if, I wanted, I do believe we have some people from that group on. I don't know exactly which ones.
All
I
right,
see
why don't you,
Lindsay's here, so yeah.
Okay.
why don't you do your presentation and then we'll open up the mics to see who wants to speak on their behalf.
PDC staff allege Central Valley Citizens for Education, a ballot proposition committee supporting the Central Valley School District, the proposal before voters in the March 2024 special election, violated RCW 4217A, 235 and 240 by failing to timely and accurately file monetary contribution reports and summary full campaign contribution and expenditure reports. Disclosing contributions and expenditures undertaken by the campaign as required by campaigns registered under the full reporting option. So this one's a bit complicated. I might just kind of give you an overview of what we did here. So we had 2 complaints come in regarding Central Valley Citizens for Education, and they were regarding the failure to file the 21-day pre-election reports. That was the case. They did file. However, they did file on, let's see which day. They filed February 3rd. So they did file 11 days late, but prior to the election. And when the reports first came in, I noticed that there was a large cash received. And as I'm sure you know, the school elections, the special elections are, as they're called, special. So we do see some things that are out of the ordinary. And in this case, the last time this committee had operated was in 2021. So there had not been a provision before the voters since 2021. And so there was a new group of people in 2024. And as we often see in these special election, school election committees, they do have a large opening balance, which is the transfer in from the previous campaign. And sometimes they are quite large because there had been a number of years since the last election. And from speaking to the committee, Colin, like I said, Colin helped me with this one, and it was quite complicated because we did have to kind of dive into it and figure out what really happened here. And from speaking with the committee members and doing our investigations, what we realized is when this new committee took over, they basically just reported what was in their bank account. It was new people. They had spoken with the treasurer from the earlier committee from 3 years prior, and that person had told them that they had reported everything in a previous reporting, a previous committee. So they reported what was in their bank account and then moved forward. However, what we came to understand is when we were looking at the previous committees that those numbers did not match up. And there was about 3 years of contributions that were not reported. These were very small contributions. They were the school employees, for the most part, doing payroll deductions of anything from $1 a month to $10 a month, $25 a month. And it did add up to, as you can imagine, per month for 3 years, it did add up to quite a bit of money. However, the committee had reported all of its expenditures when it did report those 11 days late. They also filed their 7-day on time. And so the voters were aware of what expenditures were made. They had about 4 large expenditures. They did some postcard mailings, some radio and TV commercials. This, as I'm sure you know, Chair is in the Spokane area. They did some, those were their big expenditures, and they did also some door hangers, I believe. So all of the expenditures were reported timely. The contributions were missing at one point. So and I'm, like I said, I believe there's at least one person here from the committee to report and go over some more information. So we have, when we worked through the penalty schedule, this is where it gets challenging, and there may be a question that you might want to take forward. As I noted, it's quite a bit of contributions that were not reported. somewhere in the $30,000 range. However, that not all of that was
Alice,
spent.
Can I
Yes.
ask, as to the unreported receipt of, is it an unreported receipt of money?
Yes.
Okay, and you said that over time was approximately $30,000?
Yes.
Okay,
Over
thank you.
3 years. It was
Okay.
approximately $30,000 over 3 years. Again, with these school elections, we run into some challenges because the new committee that you will hear from today, that wasn't all their responsibility to report those contributions as they were made under a previous committee. However, that was their responsibility to make sure that the money they were reporting was correct, and it was not. But the committee did take, after we figured out what exactly happened, they did their research, we looked at some other things. They've filed, they're all up to date, everything's almost to the penny. I think we're about a couple dollars off at this point. So we're very close, and they did take that on, and it was quite a bit of work. Colin working with them, me working with them, checking with numbers like that. But again, it was quite a bit of money that was not reported. And as of a penalty, there's a couple of different ways we could look at it. We are limited at our penalty at this point. This may be something you want to take forward to the full commission. And I'm sure you'll want to take into account what the respondent would have to say. Do you have any questions for Colin or I?
Do you have a recommended penalty?
We looked at that, and we recommended a penalty. At this point, it would be a full penalty. There's no really a suspension, except if we wanted to do a suspension for staying in compliance for the next 4 years. However, we don't really know if that would be logical at all at this point, because they may not even be involved for the next 4 years. So, that's why I had a little bit of challenge doing a recommended penalty, because it would be the full penalty. There wouldn't, really be a suspension at this point, because everything's up to date. And, I wanted to recommend the maximum penalty here, up to the $1,000, because of the large amount that they did fail to report.
So the maximum penalty for this type of violation would be $1,000.
That the staff recommendation.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, let's figure out who's here from Central Valley Citizens for Education. Colin, can you help us identify those folks?
Yeah, Lindsay, I would unmute it. You should be able to unmute and turn on your camera. And if you have anybody else here, can you please let me know so I can do the same for them?
Good morning or good afternoon. Sorry, I don't believe anybody else from the committee is able to attend today. There's a lot of my committee members are school district employees, and they have a big event today, so they are not here.
All right, so Ms. Miller, let me swear you in, and then you can respond to what Alice has brought up on behalf of this case. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll be giving this afternoon is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. It's all yours.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. First of all, we want to apologize for having to be here. As Alice mentioned, we had an employee who had been doing this work on behalf of the Citizens Committee for a number of years and just kind of took it and owned it. And that person retired in 2021, just after our previous campaign. And there was not a very good handoff of the ongoing reporting from 2021 until today. At the time, that wasn't really even something that other members of the committee who are still on knew happened in the background, unfortunately. So when we started up this committee for the 2024 election, we went in and started a new committee, not realizing there was an existing ongoing committee that had already been created previously by Jan Hutton, was my understanding. And so we created a new committee and just put a dollar amount in and said, hey, this is what our balance starts with, not realizing that those two things needed to tie together. It wasn't until towards the end of the or the cycle where we realized, hey, we're actually missing a lot of information here and we need to dive in and get this corrected. I did submit all of those forms. I went back and did all that work and submitted all of the payroll deductions from March of 2021 until we had started our campaign, which I think was November or December was when we had the first few that we did as part of the campaign. So we did backdate all of those. The bank account matches exactly to what the PDC says we have right now. So that's good news for us. But, you know, in all honesty, it was just a not understanding of the system and not understanding of what was required, and not knowing that there was an existing campaign, ongoing campaign. And that's on our fault for not knowing those things that we should have known.
Let me ask you a question. I'm intrigued by there's an old campaign and then there was a new campaign. Did you register separately or did you register under the former?
We did not. We didn't know it existed. Our thought process, and this is just not having done PDC reporting before, was, hey, it's a new campaign. We went and created a new campaign, not knowing that there was an existing ongoing campaign that already existed. We didn't know it existed, and we had no way of really getting into it because it was created by somebody who had since left. So we really had no data around how to get into it, even if it did exist. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but did you use their bank account?
So we had a bank account. The campaign has a bank account, yes, and so we had somebody new put on that bank account when the person retired who was managing that work. That person has then taken a different role and isn't even really doing it. So we're trying to get that resolved as a separate issue, because right now we don't even have access to the bank account. So I'm trying to figure that out. As people come and go, it's really challenging. So when we did this campaign, we just started a whole new campaign, not realizing that they tied together. We did not realize that there was because it asked you for your beginning balance when you create a campaign. So we just put the beginning balance of what our bank account was and then started from there.
That the bank account was the old bank account.
Yes.
You created the bank account.
No, we did not create a new bank account.
That was my question.
Yeah. Sorry.
So you were aware that there was something pre-existing
yes.
to your.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
All right.
Yeah, we knew we had the beginning balance. We just didn't reflect exactly all those. There was a delay. The contributions for that March 31st or March of 2021 till today were not submitted to the PDC, which has been rectified, and they have now since been submitted.
All right. Well, the most important thing in my mind is that the problem was addressed and the reports are now complete. And I would suggest if you intend to form another campaign like this in the future, that perhaps you don't tie them together so that you don't create an unnecessary problem like this one did, unfortunately.
Yeah, we actually, after this, I'm actually planning on reaching back out because we're trying to figure out where we go from here. Because I have a one-time campaign that we created, and we do need to kind of resolve that, because right now I need to be doing monthly reporting, I'm assuming, to make sure we can get those payroll deductions that are still ongoing from school district staff. So I'll probably be reaching out again, you know, once we have finished this conversation, and then we can figure out, do we need to do an ongoing campaign, or what does that look like, and what is our responsibility within that, so we make sure we follow through.
Good. And there are lots of people at the PDC that can help you follow the rules of the road in that regard. The thing that troubles me is that I was just looking through my notes. There was, almost $30,000 of money that I'm going to say slipped through the cracks. That's not the right thing, but it didn't come to your attention because you didn't have the information to get that. I'm glad that it was fixed, but that's a fairly sizable contribution for a school levy contest. And so I don't hear you saying that that there wasn't a violation. There was a violation. I think there's some mitigating factors that I don't think the people that worked on this, I'll call it the second campaign, had any ill intent or didn't try to cause harm by this. And once it was determined that you had missing information that happened before you folks were involved in the campaign, that you took steps to rectify that and bring the reports up to date.
Mhm.
So I do have to find that there is a violation. Given the amount of money at stake, I think I will impose $1,000 fine. I'll suspend half of that. Because you do have all of your forms up to date. One of our standard procedures is that you don't commit any further transgressions or violations in 4 years. Whether or not your organization stays intact during that period of time to qualify for the 4 years is something I don't have any control over. But I will put that, ask that standard language be put in there in the event that you choose to continue the same organization to deal with any other future levies that come up. Was this a
Yeah.
levy or a bond?
It was
a
it was 2 levies. It was a capital
Okay.
levy and then an EP&O levy, and we will have another levy in about 3 years. We have a 3-year cycle, so I
Okay.
would expect that we would be within that 4-year time frame. And we don't plan to disband this group. I think once we
Okay.
get this is our own. Once we've got this figured out, we're good now. Hopefully.
So I think unless you have any other questions, that'll conclude this matter.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Whoops. The next matter is Dan Delano. Alice, it's you again.
Yes, that's me again.
I see some initials that are DD, so I assume Mr. Delano is here.
I believe so.
Okay, go ahead.
PDC staff allege in PDC case 146381 that Dan Delano, a 2022 candidate for Grant County Commissioner, violated RCW 17A 235 and 240 by failing to timely and accurately file monetary contribution and summary full campaign contribution and expenditure report, disclosing contributions and expenditures undertaken by the campaign as required. Dan Delano was a first-time candidate in running for office in 2022, as noted, running for Grant County Commissioner position 3 in the 2022 general election. Mr. Delano did not advance to the general election. On December 15th, 2023, PDC staff received a complaint with the enclosed allegations. In our investigation, it was found that Mr. Delano did not file any reports for the 2022 campaign. Once contacted regarding the complaint, Mr. Delano did file 2 C3 reports, but at this time, these are the only reports he's filed. And I believe Mr. Delano is on the line for comment.
So how many reports are missing?
Well, at this point, we don't know exactly, but we do know at least 3 are missing that were required, the 21-day, the 7-day, and the post-election reports.
So at least 3 are still incomplete.
Yes. And staff would suggest a penalty of $450, $150 for each of the 3 reports, with $300 suspended once the reports are filed.
Thank you, Alice. Can you unmute Mr. Delano?
Mr. Delano, you should be good to go to unmute your mic and turn on your camera.
Oops. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Let me swear you in before we take your testimony. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll be giving this afternoon will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do swear.
All right, it's all yours.
Yeah, no denying that I did not file in a timely fashion. It's as I mentioned in a number of emails to Ms. Fimmon that yeah, it's just a lack of time. It is not a I'm not a scofflaw. I definitely see the PDC as a useful public entity, keeping campaigns honest and all. Yeah, yeah, other than if I have a full-time job and family commitments involved in the local political party here in Grant County, just not enough hours in the day. And in hindsight, I had a couple of offers of people, I'd pay them $100 a month to take care of my PDC. In hindsight, that probably would have been money well spent. At the time, I thought, well, shoot, you know, most of my campaign was self-funded, so that would have been an additional $100 out of my pocket. But like I said, in hindsight, that probably would have, just for the having that hanging over my head. So I also would note the gentleman filing the complaint, Andrew Copen, is definitely not doing it in good faith. If you look his name up in the PDC files, you'll see that he has a record of filing harassing PDC complaints. He's done it against a number of our candidates in Grant County, and most of them have been dismissed as baseless. So mine obviously is has merit. I mean, it's obvious that I didn't file my whole thing, but for the record, Andrew is not doing this in the, you know, in the purest of intents. So I guess that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you for that. The staff has testified that you have at least 3 missing reports, and you don't deny that. Everybody's busy who runs for office, and people manage to get their reports filed on time, and we need to make sure that, I mean, you're an elected official. Were you successful in your race?
No.
Oh, sorry.
And that was the kind of the additional, I guess, disincentive to you know, kind of triage and parse my time that I didn't get through. But yeah, so anyway.
Oh, I'm sorry that I mischaracterized that. I was confusing it with someone else that I read about last night. But in any event, we do need to get those reports filed. And what we typically do to encourage people to get those reports done is find a violation, impose a fine, and suspend a portion of it if you get the reports filed within 30 days from the date of the order, which is probably going to be more in the neighborhood of 5 to 6 weeks because of the time it's going to take for the staff to get the orders out from hearings this week. So what I will do is I will find that there's a violation. I will impose $450, which is $150 for at least the 3 missing reports that we know about, and then suspend. I'll suspend 300 of that, leaving 150 to be paid if you get those reports filed within 30 days from the date of the order, and you don't commit any further PDC transgressions in the next 4 years if you choose to run again.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I need to get them done, so I appreciate
you need to get them done, and I hope you do. I don't want to, prefer not to have you recycle back into this list again.
Yeah, I'd rather just pay. Yeah, just you know, make yeah. Anyway, not fines. So yeah.
All right. Well, that's my ruling. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, we have 2 matters left. The next one is question pack, which will be presented by Jennifer Hansen. Good afternoon, Jennifer.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Vice Chair Hayward. And I have, I saw that Charles Wiegand, who has participated in the past during the initial hearing for this respondent, I see that he was on the line as well. I assume that he is still there and would like to speak when I'm done. So as with Alice's case, the Central Valley citizens, this one is a little bit complicated as well, only because it is a multi-year, 2 complaints over multiple years and multiple allegations. So I'll give you the overview here.
I have to say, when I read this last night, I had a hard time following the bouncing ball, but I'll let you proceed.
Yes, my apologies about that.
It's not you, it's the number of violations when they occurred, so it's not your fault. I know you're reporting it accurately, but it was, anyway, just go ahead.
Yes, so this involves Question Pack, who is registered as a continuing political committee with our agency. And there was 2 complaints submitted by Glenn Morgan alleging allegations connected to calendar year 2018 to calendar year 2021. And so the allegations include violations of RCW 4217A 235 and 240 for failure to timely and accurately file C3 and C4 reports. Violations of 4217A 260 for failure to timely and accurately file independent expenditure reports or C6 reports. Violations of RCW 4217A 265 for failure to timely disclose last minute contribution reports, and then violation of the or failure to abide by the Commission's rule WAC 390-16011A, which requires that political committees who have a sponsor, so not sponsor as in political advertisement, but a sponsor of the committee, that they amend their registration to include at least one of their sponsors' names. So the general background here is that Mr. Wiegand was listed on the last committee registration that was submitted. He was listed as the campaign manager and treasurer and listed as the only officer. And Mr. Wiegand has submitted several responses to staff. He also participated in the initial hearing that occurred in order to allow for the time for amendments and the conversations that needed to occur in order to come to a resolution for this case. The Question Pack was not given a statement of understanding. The assumption on staff's part was that the amendments would be done so that staff could review those amendments and any missing reports, and then that could be used as part of the resolution as to whatever that is. We stopped receiving any communication back, and no amendments had been done no additional reporting had been done by the respondent. So that's why we ended up here today. There are missing reports, presumably, and then missing information that is required to be disclosed on reports that have already been submitted. And so some of the allegations, there isn't very much proof. Some cases there is more evidence of the violations having occurred. So for example, one of the allegations that relates to the violation of RCW 4217A 235 and 240 is the failure to include a proper carry forward amount from one calendar year to the next. And so when the respondent submitted reports in 2020 covering activity through the end of the year, they disclosed a dollar amount of a balance of $15,530.82 in total contributions received for that calendar year, and then $9,078.58 in total expenditures for calendar year 2020. When they began the reporting for 2021, they disclosed an expenditures for January 2021 of $1,734.78, but did not include any carry forward. And so that immediately put them into a situation where they had essentially no money being disclosed as being in their account. And so these expenditures were made against an account that had no funds in it to cover the cost. They subsequently disclosed $31.38 for February, March, and April of 2021, and then $219.38 for May of 2021, and ended with a negative balance of $2,048.30 for the month of May 2021. And that was the last report that was done by the respondent to date. So there's the issue of the carry forward, as well as some other potential missing information and the negative balance that needs to be taken care of. And then no reporting since then. So if there's any additional activity that has occurred since then, that reporting would also be missing. The allegation related to the missing last minute contribution reports, there was the law requires last minute contribution reports. At that time, it was $1,000 or more being made or received for a political committee. And there was a November 1st, 2019 contribution that was made of $3,000 in kind from Mr. Wiegand. It was disclosed on November 1st and made on October 1st, 2019. And it was not disclosed on a last minute contribution report, and staff could not find any disclosure on a C4 report either. The respondent would have the option of either using a last minute contribution form to disclose this contribution being received within 48 hours, or to file a report. In this case, it would be a C4 report to disclose that in-kind contribution being received. In addition, the allegation connected to the respondent's failure to comply with the commission's rule regarding including the sponsor of the committee within the 60 days prior to an election. The November 3rd, 2020 election, general election, 60 days prior to the November 3rd, 2020 election, Question PAC disclosed $10,844.22 in total contributions, with more than 92% of that total attributed to committee officer Charles Wiegand, who is on the line, as I mentioned. That would make Mr. Wiegand a sponsor of the committee, and his name should have been included in an amended registration of the committee during that 60 days before the election. And then regarding the allegation of violations of RCW 4217A 260 for failure to file independent expenditure reports. That one, there isn't evidence beyond the reporting that was done by Question PAC as to whether or not independent expenditure reports were necessary separate from what the committee has done. So staff included that violation in here solely based on the information that has been reported so far. So based on what we know about this committee and the reporting that has been done and the reporting that was expected to be done based on the laws and rules and what was actually disclosed by the committee thus far, staff does recommend that you find a violation of at least RCW 4217A 235 and 240 for failure failure to timely and accurately file C4 reports. And this would include the one that should have included the beginning balance of from 2021, calendar year 2021, 2020 to 2021, and then failure to include accurate information for reports that have already been filed, including that carry forward and the ending balance that is as of today a negative balance. And that you would find a violation of RCW 4217A 265 for failure to submit at least one last minute contribution report during calendar year 2019. And then assess a penalty of an appropriate penalty based on the brief enforcement penalty schedule found in WAC 390.37.143. 143 includes, as was mentioned earlier in the hearing, it includes the ability for the chair to be able to, the presiding officer or chair, to be able to find a violation per report, also to suspend a portion of the penalty and to base that suspension on conditions. Staff would recommend that you find violations and assess at least a $150 penalty for C4 reports and at least $150 for the one known missing last minute contribution reporting. The penalty could, of course, be $150 per report, although it's hard to tell which reports are actually missing because of the time frame that has gone by, and if there's any other information that is missing based on the negative balance on the last report. I will note that the respondent, Mr. Wiegand, in this case, representing the respondent, has indicated that they are planning on shutting the state version of this state level of question pack down after the amendments and additional reporting is done. And my understanding, and Mr. Wiegand can confirm this, that the federal level of question pack has already been shut down, which, by the way, led to some late communication between myself and Mr. Wiegand regarding this hearing today. He did receive the hearing notice timely, but the additional messages that were sent were returned to me with an unknown error, and I didn't realize it was because the domain registration for question packs email had already been shut down. And Mr. Wiegand, I'm sure, can speak to that more if the chair is interested in that. If the chair decides, if you decide to suspend a portion of the penalty today, staff would suggest that that penalty be based on the condition that not only the missing and amended reports be completed as part of that, but that also that be done as part of the closure of this political committee, so that there isn't any additional outstanding issues connected to this committee when they file their final report. And I'm available for any questions.
I don't have any right now. Stay tuned. There may be something that comes from this. Let's get Mr. Wiegand online.
Let's see. All right. Good afternoon. How are you?
Are you going to join us by video or just audio?
Oh, I should have, my camera should be working. Do you see me?
I do not.
I will turn it off and on again. There we go. Does anyone see me?
Yes.
I can see myself.
All right. Let me swear you in before you testify for us. Do you swear under penalty of perjury? Excuse me. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll be giving this afternoon will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to clarify one thing before you get started. Is Question Pack out of business or going out of business?
It's out of business.
Okay. All right. Well, then why don't you respond to what I've read your materials and read your response to the allegations in the complaint, and it appears as though there are some reports that are still outstanding, and you don't deny that, at least in your written response. So what else do you have to say?
Well, Nancy, thank you for reading all the materials I provided. What we've been doing is a vast majority of the work that Question Pack did was for federal races, and there was some confusion in our pack what should be reported when we're doing federal expenditures and federal fundraising. We've in fact only engaged in state politics once. And I thought I had properly reported that. I might have to fix those reports, but we had spent like $1,000 or $2,000 on radio ads for the Spokane mayoral race in 2019. And since that election in Spokane, Question Pack did not engage in any state or local ballot or candidate or election measures at all. Primarily because of what was happening between Bob Ferguson and these like Google and YouTube and Facebook and Meta. They don't allow digital marketing. They don't allow political digital advertising for local and state things. So we stuck to federal stuff, which we didn't think would really need to be reported at all. That's like, because the only thing that triggered a report from us is when we made state expenditures. Otherwise, we would just try and, I think we did it kind of mistakenly, kind of throwing dollars in there to kind of make things add up. But the real point is that we don't think we're doing anything that needs to be reported after 2019. No, there's been no activity in state or local elections in Washington State. We were active in 4th and 5th and 3rd congressional districts in Washington, as well as a congressional district in Northern California and one in Oklahoma. So what we wanted to do was just like after 2019, we would just file the zeros. We would close out any of those state donations we got for that radio ad, which was basically probably just my money and a couple $25 and under donors, literally like 3. Okay, it's a very tiny, low activity pack. But if there's any way possible to just mark it all down as 0 or close up shop after 2019, because we didn't do any state level stuff after that time. And in fact, and before then, we had only been in that mayoral race in 2019. Otherwise, we were almost entirely focusing on federal candidates.
Well, you managed to file a number of reports and failed to file some other reports. So it's hard for me to tell. You know, I did run through things last night and I couldn't tell whether they were spent on state or federal campaigns, but I guess it doesn't matter because you've filed some reports indicating that you are doing something during some of these relevant time periods. I'm going to file this one under fuzzy math because I just can't figure out the first in, first out and what's happening here. But in your response, you don't deny that a large number of these reports are missing. And even if you have to report that the answer at the bottom of the calculation is 0, we still need those reports filed, because from just, you know, a brief review, it looks like there's quite a bit of money running through this pack. I appreciate you testified that you're out of business now, and that should make the ending point a little easier to identify, but we still do need these missing reports filed.
Okay. I can wrap it up so that 2018 makes complete sense. So you can see where the money came into a local race and where the money went out. But then after that, we would just file it as 0 because we didn't engage in any state politics, correct?
Well, you're going to have to talk to the staff to help you figure out the answer to that question. I'm not going to opine on something that I haven't seen.
Well, no worries. And I thought of retaining assistance, but man, that's 5 figures, you know, minimum to get into any kind of assistance, tax and filing assistance. So we've been kind of scared away from that. It was just me and a college kid were doing it before 2020, and he went off to college in Oregon. So it's just been me. But I could definitely work out the 2019 stuff and do whatever the PDC requires to get the information that you need and to bring this thing in for a landing.
Let's bring it in for a landing. That's a good resolution, I think.
Okay.
So Jennifer, I just want to go back to, I wrote some notes. I want to make sure I wrote them down accurately. You're saying there's one violation of 4217A, 235 and 240, and one for 265?
Correct. That would be staff's recommendation at a bare minimum. Knowing that you, of course, have the authority to do a larger penalty or less of a penalty.
Okay. Have you identified any other missing reports? Because I wrote down there were C3 problems with C3 and C4, a C6 independent expenditure, a last minute contribution, and a sponsor ID.
Yes, those are all correct. The C3s would be not missing necessarily, but late reports. And the C4s, I limited it to, we know for sure that there is one C4 at the beginning of 2021 that is inaccurate because it doesn't have a carry forward, and the very last C4 that was filed for 2021, which was the one that covered May 2021, that one is also inaccurate because it has a negative balance on it.
Okay.
And so given the information that I have, those reports are at least needing to be amended. They're not missing, but amended. But because the reporting was stopped in May of 2021, there was no way to know what other activity might be missing.
Okay.
And then the sponsor name piece, so missing the sponsor name, that is, the penalty schedule allows for or speaks to a violation of 205, which is the registration, the C1PC, the committee registration. That could also be included and do a $150 penalty for that. The reason why that wasn't in my recommendation as staff is because that was from several years ago, and I didn't see the benefit of amending that report to include a sponsor name when it's long past. The election was almost 4 years ago.
All right.
So if I understand it, the only campaign that was involved, that Question PAC was involved with, that has public disclosure requirements attached to it, was the Spokane May oil candidacy in 2019. There have been no other campaigns that Question PAC was involved with.
No, not on the state or local level in Washington, no.
So all of these reports, all of this stems from a failure to accurately or to timely report the 2019 activity. And then as you got into carry forwards, it was mistakenly not claimed that, hey, we're done. We filed everything for 2019. That was the only activity we engaged in Washington State. Is that correct?
That's correct, in 2019.
Okay, so that's just a matter of not filing properly at the end of the 2019 cycle. Thank you.
And I'm sorry if I can interject one more thing. One of the things that is an issue with staff being able to, and the public, the complainant in this particular matter as well, is the descriptions for expenditures that were done and reported by Question PAC were not at a level sufficient to allow a reader to identify what those were for. So
are you asking, Jennifer, in addition, that those expenditures go back and be more clearly identified?
I would like to, if I can, to hold off and make that part of the effort to file accurate reports, to correct the reports that are already done, and to base that on the activity that was actually done by Question PAC that was done at the state level rather than the federal level, rather than to require Question PAC to do a better explanation based on what we have now. So if Question PAC was involved in state level or local level elections, then yes, staff would want them to go back and do better descriptions. But no, I don't think that there's a necessity for that unless, Madam Chair, unless you would like to include that as part of the ruling today.
Well, Mr. Wiggins already testified that he's out of business, and the Public Disclosure Commission for Washington has absolutely no jurisdiction over any federal elections whatsoever. So I'll leave that to someone else to decide if Question Pack is in trouble with the Federal Election Commission. But with respect to the issues that were raised in this complaint, I will find that there are 2 violations. The first is 4217A 235 and 40, and the second is the same statute, subsection 265. The recommended penalties for each are $150, which would make a total of $300. Mr. Wigand, I think you have some digging to do to go back and make sure all these reports are accurate and timely, and that the correct amount is carried forward on the income side. I'm going to suspend $100 of that. This is kind of problematic because it's taken so long to come to our attention that this issue had taken place. So hopefully with that small suspension of $100 and the benefit of some time between now and when the 30 days on the order runs, you can get those reports filed and you'll be out of our hair if you're no longer doing business in Washington.
Well, 30 days, that's plenty of time to get my stuff together, so.
Okay, well,
I will do it.
the 30 days will run from the date that the order is signed. So start working now because that'll get you ahead of the curve.
All right, I'm on it.
All right, anything else, Jennifer, on that one?
No, that is it. Thank you, Mr. Wiegand, for participating today. I appreciate it.
Yes,
All right,
thank you for
your
joining
time,
us.
everybody.
Ideal name for Question Pack because it raised lots of questions.
It did have lots of questions, but working through it was helpful to see that they probably spend most of their time and energy on stuff that we don't regulate. So, all right, the last case this morning, or excuse me, this afternoon is Ryan Lukens. Kurt?
Thank you, Chair Isserlis, and Mr. Lukens, I didn't let you know that you were going to be at the last, so I appreciate you hanging on during the whole time. I probably should have talked about when that would occur, so I appreciate your patience. This is PDC case number 149619 involving Ryan Lukens. On April 24th, 2023, Mr. Lukens filed a candidate registration statement declaring his candidacy for the office of City Council Member for City of Camas, Ward 2, position number 1, selecting the full reporting option and listing himself as treasurer. Mr. Lukens was a first-time candidate seeking public office in 2023, and he was not successful in being elected to the Camas City Council. Staff is alleging Mr. Lukens violated RCW 4217A235 by failing to timely report the 7-day pre-general election C4 report as required for a 2023 candidate appearing on the November 7th general election ballot. For the 2023 election cycle, as noted in the prior case, a 7-day pre-general C4 report was required to be filed on October 31st. The 2023 Friends to Elect Ryan Lukens campaign filed a 7-day C4 report 20 days late on November 20th and 13 days after the November 7th, 2023 general election had been held. C4 report disclosed $10,797 in campaign expenditures made for political advertisements that included a mailer, some digital advertising, some political consulting, and a small candidate reimbursement for lost wages. The $10,000 in late reported plus expenditures represented almost 65% of all campaign expenditures made during the entire cycle. As noted in the prior case, Mr. Lukens did timely file both the 21-day and the post-general election C4 reports, and actually is the other case filing both of them early, the 21-day report on October 5th and the post-general election on November 20th. As noted above, he's a first-time candidate and he has no prior violations of RCW 4217A or WAC 390. On March 6th, I sent Mr. Lukens an email informing his campaign that the disclosed expenditures were reported late and after the election, and that based on the amount of those late reported expenditures, staff would be sending him a statement of understanding. The next day, I followed up that email with Mr. Lukens, attached a PDF copy of the proposed statement of understanding, requesting it be completed and mailed back to the PDC, along with $150 proposed penalty payment by March 25th. The next day, Mr. Lukens contacted me by email concerning the proposed SOU, stating that he acknowledged his mistake by missing the required filing date. He said he was a first-time candidate as treasurer, and as such, he had a steep learning curve, obviously, that we're aware of. And unfortunately, the timely filing of the 7-day report was overlooked by him amidst the numerous constraints and time and challenges for a candidate running for public office. He requested that staff consider waiving or the fine and issuing a warning. I replied back in the email that only the commission had the authority to waive or suspend any portion of the penalty, including one being offered by staff in a proposed SOU. I informed him that the two options are accept the SOU and the proposed penalty, or request a BAP hearing and address his concern to the presiding officer. Mr. Lukens confirmed to me that he would like to present this to you. I informed him that we were withdrawing the SOU offer, and I sent him a hearing notice on April 18th. Staff is recommending that you find Mr. Lukens in violation of 4217A-235 on one occasion by failing to timely file a 7-day pre-general election C4 report, and assess a $150 civil penalty to resolve this matter in accordance with WAC 39037-143, the BAP penalty schedule for a respondent with no prior violations. As noted, the BAP penalty schedule includes any mitigating or aggregating factors presented during this hearing by either staff or the respondent concerning the possible suspension of any portion of the penalty or waiving of the penalty. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
I don't have any for you, Kurt. Let's get Mr. Lukens on the line.
There we go.
Howdy. Good afternoon.
Good
Madam
afternoon.
Chair,
Well,
Vice
wait.
Chair. Sorry.
Just hang on a second. Are you going to be joining us by video or just audio?
Oh, I see my video on. Am I having the same problem as the other guy? Shoot, let me turn it off. How about now? Do you see my video?
Yeah, we do now. All right, let's swear you in. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll be giving today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right. It's all yours. What's on your
Okay.
mind?
Madam Chair, Vice Chair, staff, thank you. As Mr. Kurt Young mentioned, I acknowledge that I'm in violation and I made a mistake. And so I, in my correspondence, wanted to suggest, like, I'm not here to make excuses, like I'm here to accept responsibility. As mentioned, first-time candidate, steep learning curve is just like me not realizing the severity or the importance and the time and thinking about priorities and how I manage my time with young family. And everyone, like you said, is busy. So I'm not excusing that. That's what happened. I did not make it a priority. And I'm actually, in thinking about showing up today, remember as a child, I just neglected to return a couple of library books sometime. And I got a notice and I thought, oh, I'll get around to it. And I got a second notice and my parents took me back and I had to pay a fine. And so I understand, like, the follow through, because I have kids that are going to be late with their books now. And so I'm here to say, like, I trust the process. I appreciate what you do here. I'm asking for you to consider these extenuating circumstances or factors. Like, my kids were sick from like Halloween to New Year's this year, and crises at work, and realized like I was in over my head acting as treasurer, and finance is not my strong suit. So, lessons learned that, like, I'm going to tell other people in my community, like, you need to make sure that this is a priority, or you get someone to help you and activate volunteers early on, because there are severe consequences if these sorts of rules aren't followed. And I understand that. Like everybody else, like, there are financial struggles. And so I know, like, $150 is an important nominal fee to make sure that procedure is followed. But we're struggling. And so I'm asking for some consideration of that and the understanding that I appreciate the violation that I participated in. Thank you.
You think you'll be running for office again?
Ask my wife. No, but I really, I'll say, like, I knocked on 3,000 doors. And not everybody's at home, but I had a lot of conversations, over 1,000, and things at like any level, national all the way down to municipal, like it becomes emotional. But just being able to connect with so many people in my community, I already feel like I won, right? And so if someone else decides to like stick their neck out and as a first timer doesn't know what they're getting into, it's important to be a part of the civic conversation. And so that's my dream, that some people that I met on this, this journey, I didn't win, right? But on that journey, can I inspire other people, no matter where they stand, to get involved? Yeah.
Kurt, is the report filed?
Yes, it was. It was filed shortly after the complaint came in, and I believe it got filed before we notified Mr. Lukens about the complaint. So he's up to date and have been, since that was November 20th filing.
All right. Well, in the spirit of wrapping this up, I have to find a violation because it was late, and you acknowledged that it was. I'm going to impose a fine of $150. I'm going to suspend all but $50 of that. And the usual stipulations will apply to that. You'll get an order. Wait till the order comes before you pay that. I appreciate that the report has been filed and you're all up to date. And as everybody else on this call today, appreciates your civic engagement and your willingness to run for office and be humble in the face of defeat. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for running. That's necessary.
And when you run again, you'll know that you got to pay attention to these.
That's right. That's
okay.
Right. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. All right. I think that's the last matter on the agenda with are there any other matters with the exception of public comment? Are we done? All the enforcement matters are done? All right, at this time, we'll take public comment. Commenters have 3 minutes for their comment time. Only person I know of who is interested in this part of the agenda is Connor Edwards. I see his hand up.
Are you able to unmute, Mr. Edwards?
Yeah, Connor, you should be able to unmute.
Looks like he has maybe dropped out, maybe to rejoin.
Yep.
Let's give it a minute here and see if he comes back.
There he is. Let him in. Okay, Connor, just give me 1 second. And one more for video. You should be good to go.
Still unable to mute.
Still raising his hand.
Just
can
one.
we? Oh, did he unmute for a second there? Oh.
Allow mic.
So we have allowed your mic, Connor. Is there a way?
Try it one more time. And if he can't join, I would encourage Mr. Edwards to file his comments in writing and we can make them part of the record for today. Try it one more time, Connor.
Okay, hold on. There's 2 in here. Let me find. Okay.
All right.
There we go.
Thank you, Colin. I'm not sure what happened there, but I joined on my phone, and so that fixed it. whatever was going on. But thank you for staying a little bit extra longer, and thank you, Chair Esterlis and Vice Chair Hayward. I want you to consider a question. What is the cause of most of the non-compliance that this agency has to deal with in these enforcement hearings? The vast majority of the non-compliance is not intentional. In these matters, it is almost always the case that you have good people, well-intentioned people who care about their communities and are simply inexperienced, or they don't know the rules, or they are negligent, but it's almost never intentional. I think you both know that from having listened to so many hearings. Here is my point. In 1972, Washington State adopted campaign finance laws as the result of a citizens' initiative, and these laws state that members of the public have a right to see the campaign finance activity of candidates and political committees prior to voting. The muscle behind these laws, making sure that they are complied with, is the PDC and its ability to impose meaningful monetary penalties. For most agencies, the overarching thought process behind determining the level of monetary penalties is this: what level of penalty will deter others in the regulated community from committing the same type of violation? If the PDC continues to have a policy of pursuing only wrist slap nominal penalties in instances where there are non-intentional violations, which is most of them and just about all of them really, then you will continue to see cases like the ones that you heard today. This is why other jurisdictions like Oregon, Idaho, Alaska, Hawaii, and the feds actually calibrate penalties to the scale of the violation and the injury to the public. A $150 or $300 wrist slap penalty for a substantive violation is going to deter precisely no one, regardless of what any respondent tells you. And I'll note that even Director Lavallee suggested at the strategic planning meeting that penalties of this amount were not high enough to get anyone's attention. And I'll just close by saying that there are a lot of people in this state who spend a tremendous amount of time, money, and energy to comply with the PDC requirements. And it is not fair to the people who follow the law that this agency does virtually nothing to punish the people who don't. It's just not fair. That's all I've got to say. Thank you for coping with me and giving me a few extra minutes.
Thank you. I think unless I see anybody else's hand raised, that's the end of public comment this afternoon. And I believe unless there's anything else for the good of the order, we are adjourned this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I'll see you all soon.